Hi, it's Dr. Barr, and I love me some histology. We're going to talk about connective tissue resident and wandering cells. For the current learning objectives, I want you to be able to correlate the morphologies of resident and wandering connective tissue cells with their locations and functions. In the lecture regarding connective tissue types, I mentioned adult connective tissue and their components. We're going to delve a little bit deeper in the resident and immigrant cell populations. So first, I want to introduce you to cast of cells. So the residents are paying rent, and of course the transient are wandering. Under the resident cell category, we have our myofibroblasts, adult stem cells, mast cells, and adipocytes, which are fat cells, and of course the pericytes and the fibroblasts. I have this in a particular order so that I can provide you a mnemonic called mama and papa, because they're always at home. And always just think in parenthesis F for fibroblasts of father. Under the wandering or transient, these cells are not native to the connective tissue, and so they can come in depending on whether they are needed or not. So that can include plasma cells, lymphocytes, basophils, monocytes, neutrophils, and eosinophils. You can see that these are all cells of the immune systems. In the previous lecture on connective tissue types, I also introduced you to the fibroblasts as the key player in connective tissue. They are important for producing collagen, elastin fibers, and ground substance such as proteoglycans and glycoproteins. Don't forget also they have a spindle-shaped appearance. I mentioned looking at little fish in the pond with an elliptical nucleus, and you can see the collagen in the light microscopy sections as these pink fibrillary material. In the resident stem cell category, we're going to start off with adult stem cells. Stem cells are very commonly present in various organs, and they can differentiate into lineage-specific cells. In the connective tissue, they can differentiate into the various mesenchymal cells. Myofibroblasts are basically transformed fibroblasts, and they have properties of fibroblastic as well as smooth muscle activity. In the image that is shown here, you have your fibroblasts, which look like little fish swimming in the pond. Smooth muscle tend to be a little bit bigger. They have a little bit more thicker cytoplasm and a slightly larger, more elliptical, slightly thicker nucleus. And so you can see the myofibroblasts have a little bit more consistency in their cytoplasm and slightly larger nuclei. And the reason why they have slightly larger cytoplasm is because they contain actin motor proteins, mainly for the role of contraction. Now, pericytes, in contrast, wrap around capillaries, venules, and ducts, and they basically form support. They're very important in, the vascular barrier effect. Other resident cells include adipocytes, which are basically fat cells. In the image shown on the right, you have mature fat cells, which have, again, one large fat globule. It is so constipated with fat that the nucleus is pushed to one side and flattened out. And their main role is to store fat as well as insulation. Mast cells are also tissue resident cells, and they have abundant basophilic granules. And you can see on electron microscopy, they're chock full of these basophilic granules. There's still a semantics to this. Some people consider mast cells as tissue basophils, but they have slightly different functions. Very similar to basophils, they release histamine, but they, again, different from basophils, they also release chemotactic mediators for inflammation. In the wandering transient cell cast, we have our monocytes. Monocytes are circulating in the bloodstream. When they get to the tissue, they become tissue macrophages. The image shown here is, again, a light microscopy of a monocyte, which has a Bohr kidney bean or horseshoe-shaped nucleus. And they are very large, containing various granules. They can be phagocytic, and they also play a key role in inflammation, antigen presentation, as well as wound healing. Basophils play a role in allergic reactions, a type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. They look kind of like the mast cells because they have these basophilic granules in them, which they can release histamine. Neutrophils are another granular white cell, and of course they can be multi-segmented in their nucleus. They have granules within their cytoplasm. These are nuclei here with the chromatin pattern. And so neutrophils play a key role in immune response, particularly acute inflammation, as well as tissue injury. Other wandering cells include eosinophils, which play roles in allergic reactions and parasitic infections. They have eosinophilic granules, and we will talk more about the consistency and specific functions of these immune cells later on. But this is just an introduction lecture for you all to be able to recognize these cells that can be present in the connective tissue. Lymphocytes can be either B or T lymphocytes, and histologically they both look very similar. B lymphocytes are involved in antibody-mediated immunity. B lymphocytes will be transformed into plasma cells where they can secrete those immunoglobulins. T lymphocytes are involved in cell-mediated immunity, and we will go into more details in this when we talk about these concepts in adherent abilities section. So for a recap, basically what do I need for you to know from this lecture, right? You need to be able to recognize the population of resident versus wandering cell types. The role of resident cells is that they remain in connective tissue and they help maintain the tissue structure, whereas wandering cells can migrate into the connective tissue, and you can see that they play various roles in immune response, tissue regeneration, and repair. So don't forget about my mnemonic to recognize the population of resident cells, mama and papa. parenthesis father, myofibroblasts, adult stem cells, mast cells, adipocytes, pericytes, fibroblasts. And I also mentioned here, I may have forgot to mention it earlier, but there is a mnemonic for wandering cells is pack a light bag, move to the next episode. Plasma cells, lymphocytes, basophils, monocytes, neutrophils, and eosinophils. On that note, contact me if you have any questions or need clarifications, and I will see you at the next lecture. Thank you. Bye!